The stale 2 in the morning air of the alley was thick with the ghosts of yesterday's rain and the sharp tang of industrial soap from the neighboring laundromat. It was my least favorite part of the day, the final chore of hauling the workshop's trash to the dumpster, a punctuation mark on another 14 hours of solitude and sawdust. My boots echoed on the wet asphalt, a lonely rhythm in the city's quiet hum. That was when I saw it. A car, sleek and silver and so out of place it might as well have been a spaceship, was parked deep in the shadows beside my building. A late-model Mercedes, the kind that whispered of old money and new power, its polished chrome catching the weak sodium glow of the single street lamp like a sliver of a fallen star. My first thought was trouble. Cops, maybe, though they usually announced themselves. More likely, someone looking for a discreet place to conduct business they did not want seen. I slowed my approach, the heavy plastic bag of wood shavings and discarded sandpaper suddenly feeling like a pathetic weapon. My heart, a sluggish drum all day, picked up a nervous, fluttery beat against my ribs. I was just a carpenter. My life was simple, contained within the 4 brick walls of this workshop. I planed wood, I paid my bills, mostly on time, and I avoided trouble. Trouble, it seemed, had found my back alley. I squinted, trying to make out a figure inside, but the windows were tinted, reflecting the grimy brickwork of my building back at me. I got closer, my footsteps unnaturally loud now. I set the trash bag down with a soft rustle, my senses on high alert. The smell of pine from the bag mixed with the damp city air. It was only as I drew level with the driver's side door that I saw her. My breath hitched. It was impossible. And yet, there she was. Eleanor Vance, the chief executive officer of Vance Capital, the woman whose name was etched onto the letterhead of the contracts I signed, the face that stared, cool and impassive, from the pages of business magazines. The woman for whom I was currently building an absurdly expensive, floor-to-ceiling black walnut bookshelf. She was slumped in the driver's seat, her head tilted at an uncomfortable angle against the window. Her usually immaculate blonde hair, always pulled back in a severe, elegant twist, was partially undone, soft strands framing a face that looked pale and exhausted, even in the jaundiced light. Her sharp, tailored blazer was rumpled, her silk blouse creased. She was asleep. Sleeping. In her 6-figure car. In my garbage-scented alley. At 2 in the morning. The sheer absurdity of it was a physical blow. This was a woman who commanded boardrooms, who moved markets with a single decision. She had dissected my portfolio with the precision of a surgeon, and a second time to approve the final design, her questions sharp, her demeanor professional to the point of being arctic. She was not a person you associated with disarray. She was the architect of order. My mind raced, trying to assemble a narrative that made sense. A late night at the office? A fight with her husband? I vaguely remembered reading about her divorce. It had been messy, public, the kind of fodder the city's gossip columns feasted on. Her ex-husband, Marcus Thorne, was some kind of finance predator himself, equally powerful and, from his photos, possessed of a smile that never quite reached his eyes. Had he locked her out? The thought was ludicrous. People like Eleanor Vance did not get locked out. They owned the buildings with the locks. I stood there for a full minute, a statue of indecision. My hand hovered, wanting to knock on the glass, but the gesture felt like a violation. She looked so unguarded, so deeply asleep. The tension that usually held her jaw tight and her shoulders straight had finally released its grip. In sleep, she looked younger, less like a corporate titan and more like someone who was simply lost. The weight of exhaustion was visible in the faint bluish shadows under her eyes, in the slight parting of her lips. I could not just leave her here. It was not a dangerous neighborhood, not really, but it was not a place for a woman to be asleep in her car alone. What if someone else found her? Someone who was not just the guy building her bookshelf. The protective instinct that rose in me was surprising and entirely unwelcome. It was not my place. I was a contractor, a nobody. She was Eleanor Vance. Our worlds were supposed to intersect only on paper, in invoices and design approvals. Typical. My whole life was a series of moments where I stood on the outside looking in, and this was the ultimate example. Even when the subject of my awe was unconscious 10 feet away, she was still in a different universe. But the human element, the simple, undeniable fact of her vulnerability, overrode the social calculus. I took a deep breath, the cold air stinging my lungs, and tapped lightly on the window. Once. Twice. Nothing. I knocked again, a little harder this time, the sound sharp and intrusive in the quiet. Her head jerked up. Her eyes flew open, wide and disoriented. For a split second, there was pure, undiluted fear in them. Then they focused on me, and the fear was immediately replaced by